Hi you guys, it's me Arden Lee. I'm back with another video, and today I want to talk about um, something super amazing and also sometimes deeply uncomfortable, and that is when we get an overabundance of joy. I want to talk a little bit about foreboding joy, which is a concept that I was introduced to through the work of Brene Brown, whom you might know from her famous TED Talk or from her Netflix special, The Call to Courage. Super amazing, highly recommend um, a watch on that one for sure. This concept, this idea that sometimes our bodies can only handle so much joy, so much bliss, or so much abundance without us sort of like short circuiting out, right? Um, Before I jump into that topic, if you're not yet familiar with me and my work, my name is Arden Lee, and I'm the creator of the Repatterning Project, which is an 8-week container where we hack our beliefs and we get rid of all those things that are in the way of our receiving as much joy as possible. And we do that in we do that in a way where we don't short circuit out, right? We do that in a way that is that we titrate we titrate into it in a way that we can really receive all of that joy and bliss and abundance that is our birthright in a way that is sustainable, right? And we do that by examining our beliefs and our patterns and seeing how those have shown up for us in our past and how we can change them going forward. And we give ourselves compassion and forgiveness on our journeys, as we start to realize that perhaps all this joy and abundance and bliss has been here the whole time, and we simply didn't know how to access it. Which is not our fault. It's just the way that our human computer essentially works. So anyway, I am enrolling now for the next iteration of the Repatterning Project. We start June 30th. So if you're feeling called by any of this material, please reach out to me. Shoot me a PM. Find me on Facebook. Send me an email. Whatever it is. And let's talk about whether it's something that is right for you at this point in your growth journey. To get into that container and do that deep transformative work so you have freedom and limitless abundance. All of a sudden, all these amazing things happening to you that you don't know what to do with. All right, so getting into that topic, there's something that I learned about called Refeeding Syndrome. And I first learned about it reading Viktor Frankl's memoir of his surviving the Holocaust, called The Search for Meaning. And refeeding syndrome is essentially something that happens when if a human body has been starved and malnourished for a long time, if they actually take in too many nutrients after that period of starvation, it can send a shock to their systems. And there's a science behind it. If you look it up on Google it, if you want to know like what actually happens and how it throws the body out of balance, because I haven't committed that part to memory because it didn't seem as important. But essentially what Viktor Frankl witnessed was he witnessed people, being rescued from concentration camps during the Holocaust. But if they ate too much food, even though they were starving, if they took in too much, it actually put their bodies into shock, and it could cause fatality. So if you've been starving for a long time, you would think, right, that you'd want as much food and nutrients as possible. But actually, that's not the way it works. Your system needs time to adapt and to adjust. So you want to start introducing those nutrients in, fairly, at a reasonable pace, essentially. And this is true of this is obviously, it's true as a biological reality, but it's true also as a spiritual metaphor. This is why, last week I posted that video about why Cinderella isn't, necessarily the happy ending that we think it is, because she goes from this environment of extreme abuse, of mistreatment by her stepmother and her stepsisters, and she goes straight to marrying the prince and being in a palace, and it's like, how are you going to navigate a whole bunch of unaddressed trauma responses when you're in the palace, with people who are who have been accustomed to abundance their whole lives, right? How are you going to navigate a relationship with a prince who's probably been given anything that he wanted by his parents since he was born? How are you going to set your own personal boundaries and advocate for your needs when you have had your needs unmet? And when probably, the idea of even having a need feels dangerous to you. If you even just say like, hey, I think I might want to go to the ball, and you get made fun of, right? You're like, I think I have a need or a want maybe. And you get put down. They're like, well, yeah, you're going to go to the ball. Okay, right? How do you make that transition? It's too sharp, right? It's too sudden. It's too great of a quantum leap to do in one jump. That doesn't mean that you can't get to that place eventually, or that you can't heal and address everything that's going on for you. But like, you want to acknowledge and process everything that's happened to you before you can start to like then feel safe and calm your body down and be like, it's okay. It is okay to receive, right? There are reasons that we don't receive when we're stuck in our trauma responses, and that's because it has not been historically safe for us to receive things, right? So, so I've been pretty challenged in my receiving lately. It's the most quality problem to have. I'm super into it. But I'm noticing all of these responses in my body. Like, there are responses coming up that are like, I can't do this. This is like, I should just not, I should just not, I should just reject this or whatever. This can't possibly go well. And naturally, like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I called in my higher self about 2 years ago, and I know that this is what I asked for. I know that I asked for the capacity to receive more. I know that I asked for more joy and bliss and abundance. And like, there's no way, like, it would go completely against my DNA to actually self-sabotage, but I'm noticing my biological animal, my body, my biological organism that is designed to protect me is like acting up and being like, Arden, so, I don't know if you can do this. And I'm like, calm down, body. Like, we got this. It's good. This is everything that we've been intending for. We're just stretching a bit of our comfort zone. We're just stretching a bit of our capacity to lean into this. So yeah. I don't think a lot of people talk about this. When we set intentions to heal, and we as coaches, which I am one, it's like, it's probably not the greatest marketing material to be like, hey, be careful. Your happiness and joy and everything that you think you want is going to make you feel super fucking vulnerable, and it's going to be really scary, right? Why would we like, that doesn't sound like the most appealing promise to make in a transformational container. But it's real, and it happens, and you're going to want to know about it, and you're going to want someone to to help guide you through that, whether it's a container like mine, or whether it's it's just supportive friends, or whatever it is, whether it's your guides and angels if that's your jam, whatever floats your boat. But Brene Brown talks about this and calls it foreboding joy. And what she says is that joy is the most vulnerable emotion there is. My own coach, Catherine Girardi, has said this to me, when I was first on this path, and she was like, Arden, you have a history of getting, like, not just getting kicked when you're down, you have a history of getting kicked when you're up, You have a history of being broken up with on your birthday. You have a history of having these occasions where you were supposed to be celebrated, where it was supposed to be your special day, and all of a sudden someone pulled the rug out from under you, on multiple occasions. So you have a learned, conditioned bodily fear response to joy, right? So on top of the fact that joy is a vulnerable emotion to begin with, if you have a history of this happening, it gets even worse. Brene Brown talks about foreboding joy, and she says, it's so funny how I can, she says, it's so funny how I can look at my daughter and think about, like, oh my gosh, my daughter is just amazing. She's the most wonderful creature in my entire life that I could possibly imagine, and I love her so much. Oh my God, what if something horrible happened to her? And she says, we get scared of joy, And so immediately we start dress rehearsing tragedy, she says, right? And man, I just want to call that out. You know, I want to name that. I want to talk about that because um, if you experience a lot of abundance all at once, and especially if you're someone who is resensitizing to being able to feel things, you're like, all right, I want to feel things and I want to feel good things. You know, I want to set my life up so that the things I'm feeling are going to be positive, you know, so I'm not just in a complete trauma response all the time. I want to set my boundaries so that I can, you know, as much as possible, so that I can create a life that I really love, where I'm surrounded by things that actually feed and nourish me and fulfill me. And and then you know, all of a sudden we're like you know, we set this intention to resensitize our bodies after trauma and to get back into our bodies, and we're like, wow, all of a sudden I feel things, and all of a sudden I have this joy, and my capacity for receiving this joy is like is just, it's not something, you know, perhaps that that I've experienced at this level before. Wow, hey, something happened that I didn't even quite think was possible. Something that, you know, I imagined something and it turned out even better than I imagined. You know, wow, I wasn't anticipating this. And it sounds great, and it is, don't get me wrong. But there is that biological fear response that kicks in. And I think we want to be prepared for that, you know? We want to be able to understand that that's a natural response, that our bodies are just trying to protect us, you know, our lizard brains that are accustomed to, that are not only accustomed to, but have literally evolved for the purpose of protecting us from danger. And all of a sudden, like, wow, new thing that hasn't happened before. Wow, what are all the possible ways that this could go wrong, right? We've talked about this in other videos too, where we talk about negativity bias, right? The fact that our brains are wired for our survival, which necessarily means that they are wired to anticipate and think about all the ways that something could possibly go wrong. And what do we do about that, man? You know, what do we do when that happens? I think my answer so far is just to acknowledge that it's happening, and to thank my body, and to continue to use my discernment and follow my heart, and to ask myself, you know, is this realistic? Am I just scared because this is great? You know, is there actually anything that I need to be afraid of? And yeah, you know, how honest can we be with ourselves about that and our situations? And how can we bring more mindfulness to it so that we don't accidentally self-sabotage? I think that's really the key. And I know for me that I've been on this path long enough that I know I have programmed self-sabotage out of my vocabulary. I might not be able to advance as quickly as someone who doesn't have that fear response come up, but I know I'm not going to move backwards, right? I know I'm not going to reject it or move backwards on the path. I may just have to titrate into my joy at a rate that feels doable for my body, right? I might have to be like, all right, just slowly opening up, and just to know that these experiences are going to humble you, and that opening your heart is like, oh my God, you guys. I mean, it's so vulnerable, like walking around feeling like you're a fucking cherry blossom tree in spring, you know, just like in the middle of you know, a whole bunch of people who are maybe grumpy or desensitized, or you know, or just caught up in their kind of everyday, or their millennial burnout and all that stuff, you know, which is, you know, certainly a very real thing, absolutely. But we find these moments of joy and abundance that we have called in for ourselves, because that's what we're doing this work for, right? What are we doing this work for if it's not for joy and abundance and happiness? And we do it, and then we experience it. And I think we just want to be mindful of the fact that we're going to have those oh shit moments. And the only way to deal with them is just to be present and allow ourselves to use our discernment, use our mindfulness, and just continue to follow our hearts. And to remember that this is normal, and that we have bodies that are programmed with certain fear responses, and but we're not our lizard brain, you know. We have a neocortex. We have a soul, you know. If you're into all that jam, which I am, you know. We have a higher self that is absolutely capable of bringing that presence and that mindfulness to these situations and soothing us and saying, hey, yeah, this is scary because you've never done it before. And imagine if something goes wrong. Wow, yeah, that would feel horrible. But what are you going to do? Not do it? Are you going to head your own self off at the pass by rejecting everything that you've been intending? That would be pretty ridiculous. So my advice to you is don't do that. Just breathe through it, recognize that these emotions are going to happen, and enjoy what you've worked for. Because if you've been doing this work, you certainly earned it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, if you are looking to call this in and you are looking for the kind of guidance that you need to doula yourself into this kind of joy and abundance, to, you know, titrate yourself into that level of happiness, then do reach out to me, because I would love to have you in our container this summer. We are ready for some serious quantum acceleration in our growth. So thank you guys, and I will see you next time.